All right, let's dive into a theory that makes a truly massive claim. I mean, what if you could derive all of physical reality? We're talking everything from the smallest particle to the biggest galaxy from just a single geometric idea. Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore today. This is our introduction to the Unified Fractal Resonance Framework. Okay, so let's start with a really big question, something that kind of messes with what we're usually taught. You know all those fundamental constants of physics? Things like the speed of light, the strength of gravity? We're told they're just numbers we have to measure and then, plug into our equations. But what if they aren't random? What if they're not arbitrary at all?
Yeah, what if all those numbers, and honestly, the entire structure of reality itself, were just the unavoidable result of a single underlying geometric story? That's it. That's the core idea, the whole premise of the framework we're digging into.
And that's exactly what the Unified Fractal Resonance Framework, or UFRF for short, is all about. See, it's not just trying to describe reality a little better, it's aiming to explain why. Why is reality the way it is? The goal here is to derive the laws of physics right from the ground up, from first principles.
And this is the theory's biggest, most audacious claim. Get this. It says that everything we see, everything we are, emerges from one single, simple geometric process. It's like a fractal pattern that just repeats itself over and over, from the tiniest quantum level all the way up to the cosmic scale. One pattern for the whole shebang.
So a theory this bold? I mean, where do you even start? Well, it begins with its first and most fundamental rule, Axiom 1, which it calls the Trinity Foundation.
The absolute rock-bottom starting point is the simplest thing you can possibly imagine. Unity. Just the number one. Think of it as a single, whole, complete one. This is the seed from which literally everything else is going to grow.
But, for anything to actually happen, that unity can't just sit there. It has to express itself. And the UFRF says it does this by splitting into a perfectly balanced three-part, a trinity of components. You get a negative, a neutral, and a positive part. And these three little values, they're the fundamental building blocks for the entire system.
Now here's the really cool part. Look at the balance. Even though you've got three totally distinct components now, when you add them up, they sum to zero. The system stays perfectly balanced. That original state of unity is preserved. It's an incredibly elegant way for the universe to create all this complexity without, breaking its own fundamental rule of simplicity.
Okay, so we've got this simple trinity. How in the world does that build the core engine of reality? How do these three little numbers generate the fields and forces we see all around us? Let's get specific. How do they create light?
Well, it all comes down to giving each part a different job to do, a different kind of motion. The neutral zero part, it spins along a one-dimensional axis. Just picture a line spinning on itself. That simple action, that 1D spin, is what generates the electric field, or the E field. And at the exact same time, the negative and positive parts are rotating in two-dimensional planes around that axis. And that's what generates the magnetic, or B field.
And this isn't just random spinning. No, the way the magnetic fields are generated is super specific. These two components rotate in two separate planes, and those planes are perpendicular to each other. But here's the kicker. The rotation speeds are locked in a perfect harmonic ratio. It's just like an octave in music. One is exactly double the other. And that perfect relationship is absolutely key to making the whole thing stable.
And right here, this is one of those aha moments in this theory. Look, in standard physics, we just observe that the electric and magnetic fields in light are perpendicular. We just say, well, that's how it is. But UFRF says no way. It's not a coincidence. It's a geometric necessity. The E field comes from motion on a 1D line. The B field comes from motion in 2D planes. A line and a plane are naturally at right angles to each other. They're orthogonal. So the fields they create have to be orthogonal too. The physics is a direct result of the geometry. It has to be that way.
So what you have now are these two fields born from the exact same trinity, just through different kinds of motion. And this setup creates this perfect self-sustaining feedback loop. The spinning E field creates the B fields, and the rotating B fields create the E field. They just perpetually create each other, back and forth, back and forth.
And what do we call this perfect little self-sustaining knot of electromagnetic energy? We call it a photon. That's what a photon is in this framework. It's the simplest, most stable expression of this E and B field vortex. It's like a tiny perpetual motion engine made of light, and it can just shoot through space forever without needing any outside energy at all.
So, there you have it. That's the engine, a really beautiful geometric process that creates light, right from scratch. But an engine needs rules, right? What are the rules of the road that govern how this thing operates and builds everything else in the universe? Well, that brings us to the 5 axioms of reality.
We've already gone deep on the first one, the big one, the Trinity Foundation. So now, let's do a quick rundown of the other 4 rules that complete the whole framework.
Okay, axiom 2 is the projection law, and it basically says we never see reality directly. What we see, what we measure, is always just a projection, kind of like a shadow on a wall. And this is a huge deal because this is how the theory starts to explain mysteries like dark matter. It's suggesting it's not some missing stuff, but just a predictable shadow cast by our particular point of view.
Axiom 3 then tells us how those projections are structured. See, reality isn't flat. It's organized into these nested scales, one inside the other, all self-similar. And this axiom puts us on a very specific observation deck, at the scale it calls m equals 144,000. Where we stand determines what we can see clearly and what just looks like a shadow. Next up, axiom 4, which is all about how the vortex moves. It doesn't just spin in a boring closed circle. Instead, it moves through a 13-step cycle. And the crucial part is that this cycle creates a spiral, not a closed loop. This guarantees that the system is always evolving, always moving forward, never just repeating the same thing over and over again. And finally, axiom 5. This one brings us right back to where we started, to that first big question. It says that because the entire universe is built from this one single geometric process, all those fundamental constants of nature, they're not random numbers. They are fixed, calculable, geometric ratios that come directly out of this framework. They're not random. Not at all.
So we'll leave you with this last really provocative thought from the source material. Darkness equals angular displacement between scales, not absence of light. Think about that. This idea just completely reframes things like dark matter. It's not some mysterious, invisible stuff. It's just the predictable, geometric shadow we see because of where we're standing. It suggests that reality in its own frame is 100% light. It's only our perspective that makes some of it appear dark. We are absolutely going to dive deeper into this and all the other wild implications of the unified fractal resonance framework in our next explainers.